20% of the world's oil moves through one narrow waterway every day. That is roughly 20 million barrels passing a corridor barely 21 miles wide. Most people hear that statistic and imagine tankers and pipelines. Defense planners imagine something very different, the airspace above it. Because whoever controls the sky over the Strait of Hormuz controls the risk calculation for every ship passing through. That number alone already shapes military planning across the entire Middle East. But there is a deeper detail inside the current defense story that changes how that number is interpreted. Across southern Iran, radar dishes sit on desert ridges pointed toward open water. Long trailers carry missile-launched tubes that can rise vertically in minutes. These systems form Iran's layered air defense network, which already includes the domestically built Bavar 373 and older Russian S-300 systems delivered years earlier. Those defenses exist for a simple strategic reason. Iran expects any major conflict to begin from the air. American and allied forces historically rely on early air superiority to protect ships and bases. For decades, that assumption shaped every operational plan in the region. The question now circulating inside defense analysis circles is whether that assumption still holds the same certainty. That concern did not appear overnight. It grew steadily as Russia and Iran expanded military cooperation after the Ukraine war began in 2022. Iran supplied Russia with large numbers of Shahid series drones used in the conflict. In return, Western intelligence assessments began warning about possible technology exchanges and deeper defense coordination. Some reports suggested discussions involving more advanced air defense systems beyond the S-300 already deployed in Iran. Nothing publicly confirmed a completed transfer of Russia's S-400 system. Yet the possibility alone triggered serious modeling exercises inside U.S. and allied defense institutions. Because the S-400 is not just another missile battery. It represents a category of long-range air defense systems designed specifically to challenge stealth aircraft and high-value airborne targets. Its radars operate across multiple frequency bands intended to detect aircraft designed to evade traditional radar. Under ideal conditions, the system can engage aircraft at ranges approaching 400 kilometers, depending on the missile used. Defense analysts debate how effective that capability truly is against fifth-generation aircraft. But the debate itself reveals something important about modern warfare. Air superiority is no longer assumed. It must be earned again every time. There is a specific detail here that most casual coverage misses entirely. Air defense strength does not depend only on one system or missile. It depends on layers of sensors, overlapping engagement zones, and integrated command networks linking them together. Iran already operates a network of early warning radars stretching from the Persian Gulf coastline into the interior plateau. When combined with mobile launchers and multiple missile ranges, those sensors create overlapping threat rings. Each ring forces incoming aircraft to maneuver earlier and earlier. And that geometry alone can change how a battle unfolds. But that is only the surface layer of what changed in the regional calculation. The deeper shift involves the geography surrounding the Strait of Hormuz itself. Roughly 1/5 of global oil trade flows through that passage every single day. Energy markets react instantly to even small threats in that corridor. When tankers were attacked near the strait in 2019, global oil prices moved sharply within hours. That reaction happened before any major military escalation. Markets understand that the choke point itself is fragile. And this is where the defense technology question connects directly to household economics. If shipping companies believe the airspace above Hormuz is more dangerous, insurance costs rise immediately. Higher insurance costs raise shipping costs, and those costs travel directly into global energy prices. Energy prices then ripple outward into transportation, food production, and electricity generation. That chain reaction touches grocery bills, fuel prices, and manufacturing costs worldwide. A military radar installation on a desert ridge can eventually influence the price of a gallon of gasoline thousands of miles away. But the strategic concern does not stop at energy markets. The United States maintains major military installations across the Persian Gulf region. American forces operate air bases in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. Naval assets patrol the Gulf and the Arabian Sea continuously. Those deployments exist to guarantee freedom of navigation through the same shipping corridor. Any improvement in Iranian air defense capability changes the operational planning around those bases and ships. Suddenly, airspace that once seemed uncontested becomes something planners must treat with caution. Picture this for a moment. It is late evening inside a regional operations center. Radar screens display aircraft paths, tanker routes, and surveillance feeds simultaneously. A planner reviews intelligence reports discussing new radar deployments along the Iranian coast. Each radar circle expands the potential engagement envelope over the Gulf. The planner does not assume war is imminent, but every contingency plan must account for the possibility. That is why analysts focus on integration rather than any single weapon. Iran's existing Bavar 373 system reportedly uses long-range missiles capable of engaging targets beyond 200 kilometers. Older Hawk and S-300 batteries provide shorter-range layers. Mobile launchers can relocate between prepared sites along mountain ranges and coastal plains. Together, those systems create a defensive web rather than a single-point defense. Breaking through such a network requires time, electronic warfare support, and careful planning. If you follow defense reporting closely, you may have noticed something unusual. Discussions about air defense rarely appear in mainstream economic coverage, yet the consequences link directly to global markets. Military risk changes insurance rates. Insurance rates change shipping behavior, and shipping behavior influences oil supply reliability. Energy traders monitor the same geopolitical signals that defense planners analyze. That shared attention explains why small developments in the region can move prices so quickly. Markets are reacting not only to events, but to capabilities. Here is where another layer enters the picture. Russia is one of the world's largest arms exporters and has long sold advanced air defense systems abroad. Countries such as Turkey, India, and China operate versions of the S-400 system today. That spread of technology complicates military planning across multiple regions simultaneously. When the United States deploys stealth aircraft near any advanced radar network, analysts watch closely. Each encounter potentially reveals small pieces of data about detection ranges or radar signatures. Over time, those fragments accumulate into knowledge. The next intelligence assessment about Iranian air defenses is expected later this year. Based on everything covered here, what do you think it will conclude? Will it show incremental upgrades or a major shift in regional capability? Drop your prediction below as analysts debate the same question, because the answer will shape defense planning far beyond the Middle East. And it may also determine how stable the world's most important oil corridor remains. But that prediction only matters if we understand the larger system already moving underneath these headlines. The Persian Gulf has experienced multiple periods of tension since the late 20th century. Tanker wars in the 1980s showed how quickly shipping could become a target. Naval escorts and convoy systems became necessary just to keep oil flowing. History demonstrates that the region's stability depends heavily on credible deterrence. When that deterrence appears uncertain, even briefly, markets and governments react instantly. That historical lesson sits quietly behind every radar installation and missile launcher now appearing along the Gulf coastline. Defense systems are built not only to fight wars, but to influence whether wars begin. Their presence shapes negotiations, alliances, and energy markets long before any missile launches. Understanding that dynamic is the key to understanding why analysts watch these developments so closely. The technology itself matters, but the perception of capability matters even more. And the situation did not stop evolving there. That evolving situation becomes clearer when you look at the pattern of military cooperation forming behind the scenes. Over the last several years, Russia and Iran have expanded coordination across several defense sectors. The most visible piece involved Iranian drone exports during the war in Ukraine. Western intelligence agencies and public reporting confirmed the use of Shahid series drones supplied by Iran. That exchange alone demonstrated that the relationship between Moscow and Tehran had moved beyond routine diplomacy. It revealed a growing military partnership shaped by shared strategic pressure from Western sanctions and geopolitical isolation. But drone transfers were only one layer of that partnership. Defense analysts quickly began asking what might flow in the opposite direction. Russia possesses advanced radar systems, electronic warfare platforms, and long-range missile technologies developed during decades of competition with NATO. Iran, meanwhile, has spent years attempting to modernize its air defense architecture under heavy sanctions. The strategic logic of a technology exchange became obvious to many observers. When two countries face similar geopolitical pressure, they often deepen military cooperation quietly rather than publicly. The official response from Washington focused on monitoring and deterrence rather than immediate confrontation. U.S. Central Command maintains continuous surveillance across the Persian Gulf region. Satellite imagery, airborne radar platforms, and maritime patrol aircraft track military deployments across the coastline. Intelligence agencies also rely on open-source analysis from commercial satellites that capture high-resolution images daily. Those pictures allow analysts to track construction of radar sites, missile batteries, and logistics facilities. The modern intelligence environment means very little military infrastructure remains completely hidden for long. Yet technology is only half the story. Strategy changes when new capabilities intersect with geography. Iran's southern coastline stretches more than 1,000 miles along the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. Mountain ranges rise inland, creating natural locations for radar installations. From those elevations, sensors can monitor aircraft movement far out over the water. Each additional radar site expands early warning coverage. Early warning, in turn, provides air defense crews more time to prepare missile launches if aircraft approach. This layered network matters because the United States historically relied on rapid air dominance in Middle Eastern conflicts. During the 1991 Gulf War, coalition forces destroyed much of Iraq's air defense system in the opening days. Similar strategies appeared in later operations in Iraq and Syria. Advanced stealth aircraft and precision weapons made those missions possible. But those operations occurred against older defense networks built with Cold War-era technology. The environment becomes far more complicated when radar networks evolve. Picture another moment inside a military planning room. A map shows the Gulf coastline stretching from Kuwait down to Oman. Colored rings expand outward from radar stations representing detection ranges. Some rings overlap the shipping corridor itself. Others extend toward Allied air bases across the Gulf. The planner studies those rings not as predictions of war, but as variables in risk calculations. Every kilometer of additional radar range forces aircraft to adjust altitude, speed, or entry routes. This is why air defense discussions always include electronic warfare. Modern aircraft carry systems designed to jam radar signals or confuse missile guidance. Electronic attack aircraft can accompany strike missions to suppress radar networks temporarily. Cyber operations may also attempt to disrupt command networks connecting sensors and launchers. Warfare in the 21st century rarely involves a single technology acting alone. Instead, it becomes a contest between integrated systems trying to outmaneuver each other. But there is a deeper economic dimension hiding beneath these military diagrams. Energy markets do not wait for conflicts to begin before reacting. Traders constantly evaluate geopolitical risk when pricing oil futures. If a region responsible for a major share of global supply appears unstable, prices often move preemptively. Insurance companies also adjust premiums for ships entering high-risk waters. Those costs ultimately travel through the supply chain until they reach consumers. For a moment, the system appears stable because tankers continue moving normally. Global shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has remained steady despite periodic tensions. Yet the stability depends heavily on confidence that naval forces can protect shipping lanes. If that confidence weakens even slightly, the market response can be immediate. A small perception shift can produce a large financial reaction. That number is not a typo. The Strait of Hormuz handles roughly 1/5 of the world's seaborne oil trade every single day. Few other locations on the planet concentrate so much economic significance into such a narrow corridor. The waterway is barely wide enough for two shipping lanes separated by a buffer zone. Any disruption would force tankers to reroute thousands of miles around the Arabian Peninsula. That detour adds time, cost, and logistical complexity across global energy markets. If you notice these signals building before major headlines appeared, how long ago did you start watching the pattern? Many analysts began raising questions shortly after Russia and Iran deepened defense cooperation in 2022. Others focused on the steady modernization of Iran's domestic air defense systems. Those observers were not predicting conflict. They were identifying structural shifts in regional military capability. And that brings us to the detail planted earlier that carries far greater importance than it first appeared. Radar installations overlooking the Gulf do more than watch aircraft. They collect data continuously on every flight path passing through the region. Military aircraft from many countries operate near the Gulf for training and patrol missions. Each flight creates radar reflections and electronic signatures detectable by surveillance systems. Over time, those signatures form a database describing how different aircraft appear to radar networks. Here is why that matters strategically. Advanced radar operators study those signatures to improve detection techniques. Engineers analyze which frequencies detect certain aircraft more effectively. Software updates can then adjust radar processing algorithms. None of this guarantees a radar system will defeat stealth aircraft, but incremental improvements gradually reduce uncertainty in detection models. Every year of data collection makes those models slightly more accurate. You are watching this calculation unfold in real time before most people connect these dots. Air defense modernization, radar data collection, and international technology cooperation are separate headlines on the surface. Underneath, they interact as parts of a larger strategic equation. The final result influences how confidently military forces can operate near the Persian Gulf. And confidence in that airspace directly affects the security perception surrounding the world's most critical oil corridor. Now consider the household side of that equation. If risk perceptions rise around Hormuz, global oil prices often respond within hours. Higher crude prices feed into gasoline costs, airline tickets, and shipping fees. Food distribution relies heavily on diesel fuel for trucks and agricultural equipment. Manufacturing sectors depend on petroleum-based plastics and chemicals. An air defense radar upgrade thousands of miles away can eventually appear as a price increase at the grocery store. But the analysis does not stop at economics or technology. There is also the alliance dimension. The United States maintains defense partnerships with several Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. Those alliances involve joint exercises, intelligence sharing, and coordinated missile defense planning. Any shift in Iranian military capability forces allied planners to reevaluate defensive strategies across the region. New radar coverage could influence flight routes, patrol schedules, and early warning coordination. And that leads to a contradiction now circulating quietly in policy discussions. Some officials argue that existing U.S. and allied technology still provides a decisive advantage in the region. Others point to rapid advances in radar systems and missile ranges that narrow that advantage over time. Both positions cannot remain equally true indefinitely. Which interpretation aligns with the data analysts are currently seeing develop across the Gulf? The deeper answer may emerge from a place few people expected to matter. And it starts with the radar data quietly accumulating every single day. The accumulation of radar data is quietly reshaping military calculations in the Persian Gulf. Analysts note that the datasets collected over years are not static. Every patrol, commercial flight, and surveillance sweep adds granularity. When combined with machine learning algorithms and modern signal processing, these datasets allow operators to identify patterns that would have been invisible a decade ago. Subtle variations in aircraft signature, altitude adjustments, or flight path deviations all contribute to a more precise understanding of potential aerial threats. This is why modern air defense is as much about information as it is about missiles or guns. A radar system with extensive historical data can anticipate where aircraft are likely to appear, even if the targets attempt evasive maneuvers. That predictive capability shifts the strategic balance. It reduces reaction time pressures for operators, improves missile interception probabilities, and increases the confidence of commanders planning operations. Over time, the knowledge advantage can become as potent as raw firepower. From a geopolitical perspective, the implications ripple outward. Countries monitoring Iran's enhanced detection capabilities are recalculating the risks of deploying aircraft in certain corridors. Flight altitude, formation patterns, and electronic countermeasures are all reevaluated. Diplomatic discussions about regional security increasingly consider technological parity, not just political intent. Policymakers weigh the potential costs of miscalculation in an environment where advanced surveillance could detect maneuvers previously considered stealthy. The United States and its allies are not passive observers. Steps are already underway to adapt. Electronic warfare training is intensifying, and new countermeasure systems are being deployed on existing platforms. Exercises simulate radar-dense environments to test both tactics and technology. Cyber units focus on understanding the vulnerabilities of integrated air defense networks. Even logistical support, such as fuel routes for aircraft in contested airspace, is re-examined. The military is preparing for a future where information dominance will be contested just as fiercely as kinetic force. But there's also a strategic patience element. Iran, Russia, and other regional actors know that overt actions can provoke international backlash. Much of the capability buildup occurs under the radar, often literally. Construction of new radar sites, testing of missile systems, and field exercises are conducted incrementally. Observers must piece together the full picture from satellite imagery, media reports, and regional signals intelligence. It's a strategic chess game played at the speed of geopolitics rather than headlines. Meanwhile, global markets respond to even the perception of instability. Energy traders monitor intelligence releases and news reports, pricing in potential disruptions before they materialize. This anticipatory behavior can lead to short-term spikes in oil and gas prices. Corporations hedge their exposure to shipping disruptions, and insurers adjust premiums accordingly. The ripple effects eventually touch consumer prices, supply chain logistics, and national economic planning. Small changes in regional security posture translate to tangible effects across the global economy. The critical takeaway is that radar modernization and air defense expansion are not isolated phenomena. They are embedded in a larger strategic, economic, and technological ecosystem. Observers who treat these developments as minor technical updates risk misunderstanding their broader implications. Every radar sweep, each aircraft detection, and every data point contributes to a gradually changing balance of power in one of the world's most sensitive regions. The scenario also underscores a subtle but important shift in modern military thinking: data as a strategic asset. In prior generations, military power relied heavily on physical platforms: aircraft, tanks, ships, and missiles. Today, data collected passively through surveillance systems, integrated sensors, and intelligence sharing constitutes a core component of military strength. Accumulating and analyzing this information creates options that did not exist before, enabling preemptive decision-making, efficient resource allocation, and a higher likelihood of operational success. Another layer is regional perception. Neighboring states and allied forces observe the pace and scope of Iran's air defense upgrades. These perceptions influence their own defense spending, force posture, and procurement decisions. For instance, Gulf states may accelerate missile defense acquisitions, invest in electronic warfare capabilities, or modify aerial patrol routines. Even subtle shifts in perceived capability can spark regional arms adjustments, creating a feedback loop where capability drives perception and perception drives further capability. Finally, the human factor remains central. Operators, analysts, and decision-makers must interpret vast quantities of data under time pressure. Automated systems aid interpretation, but human judgment integrates context, intent, and risk tolerance. Training and experience become as important as the raw technology itself. A network of advanced radars is only as effective as the people who understand how to exploit the information it generates. In conclusion, the evolution of air defense and radar capabilities in the Persian Gulf region illustrates a convergence of technology, strategy, and economics. It's a subtle shift with broad consequences. Military planners gain predictive power, regional actors adjust their posture, markets respond preemptively, and policymakers rethink assumptions about operational freedom. What may seem like incremental upgrades in radar systems are in fact the backbone of a deeply interconnected strategic landscape. Every sweep of the radar, every intercepted signal, and every new dataset quietly shapes the environment that governs military, economic, and political decisions across the region. And that is why watching these developments closely is not just about military analysis. It's about understanding how power, perception, and data intersect in one of the most consequential regions on the planet. Read that again. 20 million barrels. Sitting still, not moving. That is the image that frames the current strategic pressure point in the Strait of Hormuz. Analysts estimate that roughly 20% of the world's seaborne oil supply passes through this narrow waterway every single day. Even minor disruptions here can create cascading effects across global energy markets, directly influencing household energy bills, transportation costs, and the pricing of goods that rely on fuel for production or distribution. The presence of advanced air defense systems in the region compounds the risk. Any military miscalculation could quickly translate into economic shocks that Americans feel in their daily lives. The interplay between technological sophistication and strategic geography means that traditional assumptions about military superiority are being challenged. For decades, the United States operated on the principle of air dominance. Aircraft, carriers, and precision munitions created a margin of safety that allowed operational freedom across the Middle East. But the integration of advanced surface-to-air missile systems with regional early warning networks disrupts that assumption. Flight paths that were once considered low risk now require complex planning, electronic countermeasures, and continuous surveillance to ensure the safety of both personnel and assets. You are watching this calculation unfold in real time, before most people have connected these dots. The layering of indigenous Iranian air defense systems with imported capabilities creates overlapping threat zones, known in military planning as defense in depth. Each layer offers a different engagement envelope, forcing potential adversaries to adjust altitude, timing, and approach vectors for aircraft and naval movements. The operational complexity multiplies with every additional radar or missile battery deployed. That means planners must consider dozens of contingencies simultaneously, elevating risk levels even before any conflict begins. At the same time, the data sharing between allied and adversarial systems could fundamentally alter operational calculations. Observers point out that every radar signature, each electronic emission, and all intercepted communications contribute to a composite understanding of U.S. tactics. If that intelligence is analyzed and disseminated within hostile networks, it effectively customizes threat models specifically for American platforms. This transforms hypothetical vulnerability into actionable risk. Pilots, commanders, and policymakers are now forced to weigh decisions against a backdrop where information itself can become a weapon. Consider the economic dimension once more. A potential disruption in the Strait of Hormuz does not stay confined to geopolitical analyses. It reaches every American home. Even a short-term spike in oil prices reverberates through the cost of heating, transportation, and manufactured goods. Central banks, treasury departments, and energy regulators monitor these signals closely because delayed reactions can compound market shocks. The link between military posture and household economics is no longer abstract. It is direct, immediate, and measurable.